Okay, hello. The date is Wednesday, the 4th of September, 2024. And I'm sorry to anybody who might have already had a look in and saw nothing going on and might have left already, but they might have delayed at the start, or been late rather, by about 2 minutes. Anyhow, I'm going to say this into the ether. And look, if anybody picks it up now or in future, good enough. Although this is a sort of a timely address. God, I don't want to over egg this thing. Look, first things first, I better just check to see if I am online. Many times I have been talking to myself for several minutes, if not half an hour, and it's turned out that it's all been just noise, sound and fury signifying nothing and going nowhere. So, yeah, it was just a fairly impromptu live stream that I wanted to do. And its purpose is really just to invite you to another platform this weekend where hopefully we can speak. Well, I know we can speak more freely. So let me just, first of all, what I'm doing now is the reason I'm being a bit distracted is because I'm trying to check to see, am I indeed live? And, StreamYard, sometimes it doesn't show me if there's anybody in the room or not. But yeah, so I'm just going to check to see if anybody does ever pop in, send a comment, and I'll know you can hear me. Right, so it's always useful if you can't think of anything to say, because all of a sudden, did you ever notice this when even if you've never tried to do a StreamYard or never tried to go live on any kind of streaming platform, even back in the old days when we had tape recorders or dictaphones or whatever, you might have a great conversation with somebody or have some wonderful thoughts that you thought it would be more efficient to speak and record rather than write down. And all of a sudden, your mind goes blank. And it's the sudden pressure of people, of the thought that people might be listening to you and perhaps not agreeing with what you're saying or criticizing what you're saying or thinking that what you're saying is silly or stupid in some way. Anyway, Charming Anarchist did very kindly there say, I can hear you, so thank you very much. And Modus Operandi says, I'm at the docks. I've just seen, what is that? Noto? Oh, notification, I guess. Duh. And Stephen Crumley there says, cheers, John. That's great. No better fellas or ladies. I don't know if Charming Anarchist is a lady or not, but it doesn't matter. I'm sorry. I'm not going to pretend who's who and whatever. It doesn't really matter. There's Ulick McGee. I was speaking to him recently on one of his live streams. And I'm really happy to be making connections with you guys wherever you might be. And, I was going to say, like, whoever you are and all that kind of stuff. What really matters is what our minds are made of, what we stand for. And, I won't preamble too much. I expected to have to fill a bit of air there. I also won't. I've been on a platform where people talk about glazing people. And that's, I'm getting a bit old now. And so I don't always be hip to the new lingo, right? Okay. So, like it or not, unfortunately, my parents said this to me. And I said, never, it'll never happen. They said, you'll find yourself repeating some of the phrases we said. You will find yourself hearing the voices of your parents in you. You think you're cool and young and you know what's going on and you're trendy and modern and all that. But eventually you'll get old and you'll start turning into your parents. I said, never. Right. But like many things in life, I've had to admit that I've been very wrong about a lot of stuff. I was quite arrogant. I didn't have a vision for the long term. And in fact, when I was a teenager, I thought somebody who was 21 was old. I thought 18 was old. I thought 24, 25 was ancient. And I never imagined even getting to 30, 40 or 50. I never thought that I would grow old. And all of a sudden, here I am, and I wonder where all the time went. So I'm kind of trying to make up for all the time. And I'm trying to think about how I can best make use of my time, what little of it there might be left, before my time on here on earth is gone. And I'm not trying to say, oh, woe is me or anything like that. It's just there does come a point in everybody's life where you sort of say, what have I done so far? And what am I going to leave behind? Is it just going to be a life full of regrets where I coulda, shoulda, oh my God, coulda, shoulda, woulda, nearly forgot that phrase, coulda, shoulda, woulda done all these wonderful things, and I never did anything of any substance. And a lot of people think, what legacy am I leaving behind? And the reason they think that, or they might think that, for example, Bill Gates or whoever, we wonder, like, what does he think he's doing? Does he think he's creating a better world for everybody? Like, what is his legacy? And a lot of men, either good or bad, they like to leave a legacy behind to glorify themselves. And that is, I think, I don't need to explain to you, obviously, a very poisonous mindset, a very bad idea to have in your mind. What we must all of us, each of us do or realize or come to the eventual conclusion of is that we're all just people, individuals, but collectively we do what we can for the greater good, for the betterment of our people. And if we have felt that we did all we could to contribute to this cumulative effort of the betterment of our people, of the preservation of our people, the survival of our people, the regeneration of our people, and the promulgation of our people, if we have contributed to that, if the net effect of our existence has been to contribute to that movement in that direction, then we have done some good in our lives. And we should be very satisfied for that. So, even if there's no afterlife, but whatever there is, if on my dying breath, I can say to myself, I think I did all right there. I don't really regret. Overall, I made some mistakes. Yeah, sure. But I think I did all right. I think I made some contribution to that. Then good. I don't have to be ashamed of myself. I don't have to feel regret. I can say, sure, I could have done better, but at least I copped onto myself in the end and I started doing the most that I could. I started making the most efficient use of my time. So I think you get the message. Now, in doing that, a lot of people think, okay, what do you want me to do? Pick up something and go out and do something to somebody. And the answer is probably not. But each of us makes a difference sometimes in our lives that you don't really maybe even ever notice. A big part of what we want to do is to bolster each other, is to provide mental strength, first of all. Like, because I've had some good friends in my life who have been, far tougher physically men than I was, far stronger, far more imposing. And, to the point where, like, these guys were as tall as they were wide. And they looked very dangerous. And yet, in their minds, they were quite full of anxiety. They were quite socially awkward. And this has been part of what, people have done to us. They have done all these things to mentally subdue us all. And the first step to helping other people is to climb out of the mental subjugation, and then you can exert some kind of physical control over your environment. And as I say, some of my friends have been very shy about speaking their mind, very shy about even thinking certain thoughts. And so a lot of people ask, what's the point in all this jibber jabber? What's the point in all this talking? It's getting us nowhere. Well, the right kind of conversation does actually get us somewhere, as long as it's driving us in the right direction. And I'll say to you that a lot of the time, we all squabble about exactly what the right direction is. What exactly is true north? Well, what do you mean by north anyway? My compass says this, my compass says that. As long as it's pretty much on course, as long as we're not heading in the polar opposite direction, then that's doing some good. And, when I was younger, I used to get very frustrated that I didn't see immediate victory by doing what I supposed was the right thing. I'm pressing the right buttons, figuratively speaking, on this amusement arcade, and yet I'm not winning the game. Why is this? The game must be rigged. To hell with this. And I give up. And so what people used to admonish me with was they would say, you need to start learning to deal with the world in the way that it is and not in the way that you feel that it ought to be. And when most of the time when we're talking about the world, what we are really talking about is people and the way that they react to the things that we say or do. And what the thing that I'm realizing. So I've spent you know a lot of maybe the last certainly 2 weeks, maybe the last month on another platform. I better say it actually. I'll use the new word for it, or the new name rather for it. It's just X, right? And I'm going to invite you to come there this weekend. I haven't set a time or a date, but if you don't have an account, you're going to have to make one. A lot of people make a burner one because they don't allow you to listen without having an account. But you can listen anonymously if you like and whatever. And although it's not a perfectly free speech thing, you can say a lot, and you get a lot of people who really don't agree with you, and they come into your space, as they call it, and they might try to disrupt it. And I take that as proof that they know that we could actually uh, prevent their success. Like, so if we're playing a game of chess, and if one of our tactics, supposing one of our moves that we make is immediately countered by them, or you see, supposing you're playing poker and you start putting in a lot of money and you see the color drain from their face, well, these are tells that your enemy is worried about what you're doing. And then by the sort of law of proof by contradiction, then you can say to yourself, aha, I think I've figured out what I just did there actually genuinely made him worried. And the fact that they're worried should give us some hope that all is not lost. It's still possible to win the game, even if we are in the end game stages. You know, like even if we think that the chance of success is slim, or that there's very few pieces left on the board, meaning our own people have been greatly diminished or decimated, we can still win from this position, and they know it, and that's why they're worried. So as Ulick McGee there says, you just have faith. And faith can also be thought of as loyalty to your own people, cohesion, fidelity, being true and remain strong in your principles. And faith often comes with hope. And I did never want to ever give anybody false hope. And so I'm not. I think that I'm giving you reason to believe that we can succeed in the long run if we don't waste our energies in squabbling amongst ourselves, because that wastes our energies, or trying to counter signal against anybody who's moving in the right direction. He may not be bang on true north, but he's going to get there. And so what I think what we should do is encourage him as long as he keeps going there, but give him a correction if we can, a gentle correction. And then also do what we can. We ask ourselves, what am I doing individually? What am I doing to add to the collective effort to drive forward in that direction? And so you see, I can use this platform here to say these things within reason, you see. And I'm talking up to a point. And then there'll be other things we can do. And maybe there's other places that we can talk about what we might do and strategize, always with the knowledge that there's always our enemies listening as well. And, in general, who I consider my friend are people who are for life, for God's creations. And he doesn't want to destroy them. But the enemy is somebody who wants to prove to God that these creations are useless, worthless, and there's no point in them. So eventually it comes down to, what side are you picking? Are you getting busy living, or are you getting busy dying? And for a long time, I felt so sorry for myself. I was in the black pit of despair. I was clutching my cloak of misery around me, thinking I was somehow giving myself comfort. But it's just the seductive creep of failure that was on me. It was the stink of failure that was on me. And it was weak-minded. And I still have moments of weak-mindedness. So what I want to do is to give other people any benefits of my experience or of my words that might give them some mental sustenance. And also I want to listen to other people who might give me in return some reason to carry on, some strength of mind, some reaffirmation that we are indeed in it together, the good people of the world who can combine our efforts and do and ultimate good, to rescue humanity from itself. So I'll take a little pause there and I'll just have a quick look at some of the comments there. Darren Swift, good to see you. He says, I tell my sister that my cup runneth over with grief, and it just sends her off the deep end. Yeah, well, I guess that might be in reference to my picture there, and it's from the book of Ecclesiastes, which is mostly the words of or to King Solomon. I better read it out in case anybody's only just ever listening back to this, or might only be able to hear it. So the quote is, in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. And in case anybody might misinterpret what I'm saying there, I'm not saying that I'm wise. I'm saying that I'm trying to get wise, in other words, cop on to myself, cop on to my ideas. And just taking a drink of water here. And get a bit smarter. And you know the way, like in business speak, they say, don't work harder, work smarter, and all these kind of platitudes. Like, I don't like the corporate environment nor corporate speak. But what they do, the problem with it is that they actually do speak truisms, but they sort of squeeze all the humanity out of their words. They make it, they use language that is mechanical. It's devoid of life. It's got all the heart squeezed out of it. And so when you hear it, it sounds like robotic, lifeless language. And so what I've tend to do, I'll speak for myself, I tend to reject it. I tend to think there's no wisdom there, but there is wisdom. Now, oftentimes, or at least it's practical advice, and oftentimes I suppose, like what you do is you overuse these phrases. A lot of people notice that, people are being listened to, or people seem to command respect when they use these phrases. So they just parrot these phrases, these mindless individuals. But they're clever enough to recognize when somebody says something like, work harder, or rather, work smarter, not harder. And they see that other people then kind of go, applause, very good. Yes, good man. That man is very clever. Promote that man, Smithers, that kind of way. Who is that dashing young man with all these great phrases, And people, it's monkey see, monkey do. People kind of recognize, I mean, nobody's that stupid that they don't see, that seemed to win approval of the crowd there. I want to be like that. I want the crowd adulating me. So I'm going to, take mental note of what was said there, and I'm going to say the same thing. You've probably seen that. I've literally seen people pretty much taking notes and then walking into another office or room or meeting and saying, well, do you know what I think, everybody? I think we should be working smarter and not harder. And for a while, people will kind of go, that's a great idea. But of course, within a few weeks, people start rolling their eyes going, really? Tell us a bit more there, Einstein, tell us more how we should work smarter, And these things then become platitudes and cliches. And then all of a sudden, anything that was good about them has been squeezed out of it. So we oftentimes have to find different ways of saying the same thing. Truth does bear repetition, but it can start to sound... well, obviously repetitive, but staid, boring, and then we mistake that for being old-fashioned, old hat, we know better, etc., etc. So a lot of the, another thing they say in business speak is they say, well, there's no need to reinvent the wheel and all these other sort of things, but again, there's truth in that. So when we've lost our way, I mean, every generation thinks it knows better than their parents or the previous generation to that. Grandparents and great-grandparents, we think, they were just old people. They'd never even seen a computer, let alone a smartphone. They didn't even have television. Well, maybe they were better off. Remember when they introduced radio? And I remember hearing, you probably heard too, of the War of the Worlds that was broadcast on that, and people went outside and started panicking and screaming and shooting at their water towers and all that. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe. But I would say, of course, all these stories that came down to us were designed to make us think that our great-great-grandparents were very, very stupid, and we only got wise when they invented television, movies, computers, smartphones, and the internet and everything else. But you see, like, we've been too cosseted for a while. I know you know this, But the smarter the devices get, the stupider we get. And we just believe what we're told and we never look into anything because we presume we know it all. And we've never had to discover anything really from first principles. We just accept what we were told as premises, premises, right? Our brains is that way. Because there's a lot of concepts that we have, like ideas in our minds that we think are our own, but they were planted in our minds before we even had the chance to examine them, let alone reject them. And so our lives have become, any of us like who are here, our lives have become, if we kind of got a bit wise to ourselves, a continuous process of weeding out all these bad ideas or erroneous presumptions that we were laboring under. You know, the way to say, well, will I say it the right way or the wrong way? So, you know, all these presumptions. Well, you know what they say about presumptions? It makes a president out of you and me, a prez out of you and me, maybe a Joe Biden type of prez, you know, that kind of a guy if you just go around presuming everything. But this is really what happens, right? We walk around thinking, oh, I know something you don't know, and all this sort of thing, thinking we're clever. The more you think you're clever, well, the more they prove themselves to be fools. Isn't that again in the Bible? I think it might be from the Wisdom of Solomon, or maybe it's not Ecclesiastes, but it's from Proverbs or one of those, you know? And so, like, I used to think when I was a kid that I didn't need religion because it was just full of these men and in funny hats and funny coats and whatever other regalia they had, telling me what I must do, what I must believe. And I wasn't allowed to ask why. They didn't feel they had to offer me any explanation. So as a very young child, I said, well, I don't believe you then. And I'm glad I did that, but I threw the baby out with the bath water. And I'll say the baby is literally Jesus in the Nativity and his whole life, and the wisdom contained in the Bible, both old and new. And a lot of people would take exception to that. They'll say, oh, no, the new is good, the old is bad, and whatever. What I would say is, whatever the source, now everything has been corrupted or polluted. We've been lied to about everything. So what oftentimes you come across an idea or somebody presents an idea to you in a certain way. And what we think is that only the other side gets triggered, right? In other words, I'll define it as somebody who has a reflex reaction before even thinking about something, an emotional reflex reaction. And we must, if we point at others and say, you know, we all know those people who we feel are completely possessed by their political ideology. And we laugh at them for being so easily triggered, right? But I'm going to say, okay, whatever you can examine your own conscience. I'm going to say, I know that I have reflex trigger reactions. I don't like the sound of something. I don't like a particular word. When the whole idea that the person was trying to convey would have been fine if I could just substitute it for another word that does sound nice to my ears. Or when you see a picture and you reject it because it doesn't have your favorite colors arranged in the right way, but is it conveying an idea that's useful to us? And see, this is a lesson that has really taken a long time for me to try and grapple with because I didn't like it, because people kept telling me, leave the bad and take the good out of everything. You know, whatever works, just go with it if it helps you to achieve your ultimate objective or your aims, right? If you want to get somewhere, use whatever means are at your disposal to get there. And I used to think, oh no, that's cheating. There's only certain right ways to get somewhere. Like whether you're trying to write a computer program to get somewhere and somebody says, oh, that's clunky code or whatever, you know, or you're not allowed to use that particular language, or I wouldn't define my variables that way, or I wouldn't bother using that library, or I wouldn't develop on that platform. I mean, that platform's only for those kind of people, or whatever it might be, you know. Like if there's an audience to reach, you might go somewhere there to get whoever is willing to listen in whatever way, and you have to tailor your message for those people. And you have to speak to your audience in a way that is somehow receptive to their ears. I used to say, oh, but they should just, you know, this kind of thing. And people used to say, but you're just on a hiding to nowhere. Is that the phrase? You know, what you're doing is self-defeating if you're going to hamstring yourself in any way by not using a platform because you somehow think you're against it, or not using a method or a tool because you think it, and I used to think this a lot. I used to think it would be cheating to use that method or any part of it because my enemy uses that method. So therefore it must be an evil method or a bad method. And, you know, what I've had to come to realize is that we are in such a, In such a situation, in such a time, like we're in such a I'm trying to think of the right word here. Like the situation has become so um geez, I can't believe now there's so many words are leaving my head. Um Maybe I should look down and see if anybody wants to, because sometimes you do get a bit tongue tied. And so feel free to offer whatever suggestions, but the situation has become anyway so acute, let's say. I was trying to think of a better one, but I didn't want to repeat the end game stage. But it's serious enough now anyway, whereby everything hangs in the balance. And I know I'm repeating myself, but any and all means at our disposal, right? And the reason why I wanted to avoid coming to like so by any means necessary type stuff is, right, because I know, and I know you'll probably all identify with this. The moment we say something like that, then we go, "Uh-oh, that's communist. Uh-oh, that's Solodinsky. His rules for radicals," right? By any means necessary. Uh-oh, that's those people who march in the street and burn cities down, whatever. That's what they say, right? But they don't have any monopoly on any aspect of the truth, like, or what describes what is or what does. And so what I'm trying to get myself out of the mindset is of having a distasteful reaction in any way to something that might be useful. If it's useful, pick it up. When it's no longer useful, put it down. And when you learn a new tactic, don't just continue to use that tactic. That's what our enemies don't do. Learn the right tactic for the right time. So obviously we know from playing any game, you don't just keep pressing the same button on the arcade machine. You don't press left when you should have gone right. You don't press fire when you should have put up your shield or whatever it is. I know that's a very simplistic way of describing it, but I can go into greater detail, of course, in another time. I also don't want to labor a point when, I know you get it. So look, that might be about it. The general point is that I'd like to go back to re-examine certain concepts we might have thrown out, certain premises we may have still have that we haven't uprooted out of our minds, and discarded, and certain precepts, which is like a concept, an idea in your mind, but that went in there before you ever had a chance to question it when you were very young. Because I'm going to say, like, school, I think we've all come to realize now, was about schooling us. It was like a military training where they broke us all down and built us all up, or attempted to. Some of us did not get completely programmed, and we have been deprogramming ourselves. It wasn't about educating us or giving us the tools necessarily that we would need to be masters of our own mind, and therefore masters of our environment, and then our wider, I'll say our nations, right? It wasn't about, they didn't want to educate us or bring us up enough so that we would be formidable competition to them mentally and in every other way. They wanted us to give us just enough information and education so that we could be good, obedient members of the workforce. And I had some good teachers, and maybe you did too, and that wasn't their attitude. But overall, the institutions are there to give us a lot of ideas that will keep us suppressed, and we don't even know it. And one of those, as I've just been talking about, is to reject methods that work just because we find them distasteful, or reject ideas that would work because we think, well, if I didn't come up with it, then it can't be good. Or I don't want to be told from, there's some information from many years ago, sometimes even years before I was born, that was good. Because again, as I said before, one of the big lies was that people in the past weren't very clever, weren't very sophisticated, and we think that means they weren't educated. These people had to figure out stuff for themselves that has never even occurred to us. And when we discover it, you see memes about it on YouTube or on TikTok or whatever, and people getting millions of views showing something that would have been very obvious to people from the early 20th century, let alone the 19th century or whatever, But look, I'll take a break from waxing again lyrical. I'll just read a few more of the kind messages you have put here, or just any message I think is good that you made the effort to do. And then I'll just wrap up and tell you again about my invitation to you to join me this weekend. Time and date exactly to be confirmed, but I am going to plan for this Saturday or Sunday coming. And I'll try and let you know by a community post here as well, in the meantime. So I've gained a few followers over there, and I invite you to come over. And I'll speak a bit more on that once more before I go. So, a few comments here. Um, I better scroll. Oh, yeah, no. So, Stephen Crumley here says, I think I didn't read this out yet. He says, it's not that they think we can win, they know we have won because it's written in the Bible or that kind of thing. Uh, every time that was my words there. I'm just continuing now. He says, oh, I better, but you know what? I forgot I can put up on screen here. Sorry about that, guys. I should have done that before because I was used to using the other thing where I couldn't. So here you are on screen there. Says Stephen, it's not that they think we can win, they know we have won. Every time we have realized what was going on in history, we won. And actually, I'll apologize there for saying it's because of the Bible. No, it's just they remember. We've forgotten, so they do remember. Anyway, and they know that too, and that's why their efforts are so extreme. I agree with you very much, Stephen. They are worried, and they ought to be. Thanks for saying hello there, Joey. Good morning to you, John. I'm not going to say this word. I think you know why, because you know the way. It's just the risk reward there just isn't good. But the words, like many words there, the word you have, and I've put it on screen there, has been replaced. And they keep doing this. They keep twisting the meanings of words, changing the meanings of words, and it's all well, for a lot of reasons. But one of the main reasons is so that we can no longer understand each other, and that's something that separates us and causes confusion amongst us. We can't even, as Jack would say, get it together so we can act in unison. And sorry, second half of the sentence by Ulick McGee there says by everyone. So the word has been replaced by everyone. Old man, his name now is Old Man with a Gold Pan. How are you doing, Matt? He says, a truly wise man knows that he needs to learn much. Yeah, and look, again, what I'm going to say is, right, I'm not wise. I'm starting to get a bit wise now in my in what unfortunately seems to be the latter half of my life. And you never know, but my life could be only the next 24 hours or could have another 40 years. You just never know. So, but I want to make use of the best time of my time the best I can. And I want to make it very clear, I'm not wise. Just I read something somewhere there. I'm not going to try and say the phrase because I'll mess it up. But the paraphrasing of it is that as we are learning, we can also teach. And I'll just say this, right? Excuse me. Take another drink of water here. I see Slow Boy came in there, so welcome to her. And I can see Doc is there as well, Jack. He says he's driving and listening. I'm very glad that you're listening, Jack. Because what I was, he was doing a live stream there last weekend, and I was telling him about X. But anyway, back to what I was saying there. This idea of being wise. The moment you think you're wise, then God will send something to humble you, and you'll realize what a fool you are. It's like pride before a fall. But anyway, anything I say, I hope you'll give me the benefit of the doubt that none of it is to try and make it seem like, oh, I'm trying to say how great I am, or I did this, or let me tell you what success I've had in anything. No, but I did have a job one time for a few years of, and there's no need in getting any details, but it was essentially to bring people into a company, induct them, and give them a few weeks of training, and show them how to do their job, and then I'd be around then if they'd ever, you start a new job, even if you're in there for a few weeks or a month, you don't really feel sure or confident about what you're doing. So I would always make myself available to people to ask a question, because a lot of people are afraid of asking questions in case somebody says, oh, how do you not know that? This guy must be stupid. Why did we hire this guy? So obviously they're afraid of asking their boss or that kind of thing. You know the way. I think everybody can identify with that. So, I learned pretty quick. I had to teach myself how to teach, and I learned pretty quick certain basic rules. But I was having to discover things that I could tell fairly early on were things that had been discovered by me, like obviously centuries, millennia ago. And you start to see, oh, right, I'm now treading in the footsteps of the ghosts of all these people who have been here before me. And it's a great thing because, like, you know, you're on the right track when you not only get the sense of that, but you kind of formulate these things and you think you've kind of put it together nicely. And then you kind of go searching. You start to learn what you know you should be searching for, and you go looking for it, and then you find it, and it's already been expressed or formulated in a much better way, in a much more solid, cohesive way. And not only do you take it as corroboration that you are on the right track, but you kind of go, fantastic. The work that I put in to discover something means that I taught myself, and by the way, that's how people learn. You can't just tell something to somebody, that you have to allow them to discover it for themselves. But you put what you can at their disposal for them to learn it, for them to pick it up. Just like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So you can't force facts through people's eyeballs. But you can, if they're not completely hostile to you in every way, you can just leave some information around, and when it's useful to them, they'll pick it up. And you shouldn't be looking for any gratitude either. And never, when somebody asks you a sincere question, should you ever mock them and say, how do you not know that? You must be stupid, or this kind of thing. And you see it all the time when you're trying to, like, I used to try and avoid using words like classes, right? Because it's the wrong, it connotes or conjures the wrong idea in people's minds, right? But however, if you have a gathering of people together and you're the guy who's leading the efforts to sort of learn stuff, or I have some information and I want to give it to you, never tell them information in such a way as you're trying to show them how clever you are, right? What you want to do is actually show how easy the information is to understand. So never try to make the information sound complicated. But what you notice is about most teachers, it's all about, I want to make this sound really complex so they'll think I'm really clever. That's what most teachers do. It's an exercise in trying to prove to everyone else that the subject is so difficult that they must be so intelligent that nobody else is capable of understanding it. And then how are you going to teach anybody if all you're teaching them is that the subject matter is beyond their comprehension, right? So what I wanted to do was show these people, hey, all this stuff that they're claiming you need to, get degrees and do theses on and doctorates and all this sort of stuff. It's easy. And they start getting angry then, right? People start getting angry with you because all of a sudden you're making their job less exclusive, less important, less prestigious. When you go, that guy doesn't really know very much. He knows a few things about a very small amount of stuff. And he never tells you how he does what he does or where he gets his information. Because if he did, then people would see, well, do we really need this guy anymore? He's surplus to requirements. So you can see why. That's one of many reasons why they started coming after me, right? But again, I'm not trying to say, oh, wasn't I great, right? I should have been a lot smarter in how I went about doing certain things. I won't. I'll leave it there. There's plenty of other things I could and would like to tell you, but I'll leave it there. Point being that I think I was trying to make is that if we're trying to help each other, we all know things that the other doesn't. And any time you come across a piece of information, you might say, "How did I not know this before?" And other people might say, "I learned that 10 years ago." You see it a lot in chats, where somebody is telling something to people who are listening, and this guy will come in and goes, "I knew that 10 years ago." And you're kind of thinking, okay, well, good for you, but like that doesn't really get us any further, So if we are indeed to help each other, it should be a selfless thing. It should never be for it should never be for any of our own personal self-worth, to make us feel better about, oh, aren't I a great guy? These guys who go, I don't know if you know, but there was an English soap opera, sorry, not a soap opera, English comedians who had a comedy series, Harry Enfield and Paul Whitehouse, and they had these two characters who were DJs on British radio and television, I suppose. They were actually who they were taking, they were doing a sort of an impression of, but they didn't say who it was. But one of the guys they were definitely doing an amalgamation of impressions of was Jimmy Savile, and like, of course, everyone's heard of him, Jimmy Savile, if you like, and the outward image that he projected to society was that he looks after children, he runs marathons to raise money for hospitals and all this sort of stuff. He wants to help the orphanages and the orphans. He wants to help children who, what's that? That one out of Zoolander, children who can't read good and all this sort of stuff, right? And these two, and we know what that was a smokescreen for, a cover for. but these two comedians were talking their banal banter, and they'd ask like, "What were you doing at the weekend there, Smashy?" And Nicey was their name, Smashy and Nicey. And one of them would say, like, "Well, I don't know if you know this, Smashy, but I like to do a lot of work for charity. I don't like to talk about it a lot, but I was doing some work for charity over the weekend there, you know." And so this is it. I won't labor the point, but it was very, very funny anyway. And it gets the message across. All these do-gooder people, they love to be, and it's not just about, like, say, financial reward. Of course, we all are suspicious of those kind of people who earn a lot of money for what they say. But a big payment that they receive is the adulation, the admiration, the high praise that they receive for other people, from other people. Oh, he's such a great guy. He's doing such great work and all this sort of stuff. But equally, everything in life requires a balance. I am not saying to waste any of our time pointing at any of these people who we think might be transgressing in a way like this and saying, "Oh, look at him. Oh, he's only doing it because, oh, his motivations or whatever." If there's somebody who is particularly harming people, and I can't even name them properly here, but I will in the other place, I would say, look, tell our people, don't waste any time with him, please. Um, but otherwise, let's just see what each of us can do. And I'll try and bring it back a little bit now and say, because like one of the things that I've noticed, and what I want to help, all I think I can help really mainly is to tell people, I'm not a tough guy, I'm not a strong guy, I'm not a confident guy. I'm just trying to be. And as I'm trying to be, I think I can give you some of the benefit of my experience, some of the mistakes that I've made, not just necessarily so you can avoid making those mistakes, but so that you might be able to take heart by saying, "Oh, right, I thought this guy had it all like together, that he's perfectly well gathered in and of himself." No, I'm not. But if it sounds that way, be assured that it's not the case. Because what I've noticed is a lot of the time when somebody might appear to be speaking confidently, other people will look at him and not take inspiration. They'll say, "Ah, I wish I could be like him, but I can't because I wasn't born that way. He was obviously born that way, but I wasn't. And so God has been very unfair to me. And it just means that I'm incapable of doing those things." And that was one of the ways that I gave up. I allowed myself to give up before I even tried in any number of directions. I would look at other people who were more confident, more charismatic, better looking, stronger, taller, and better in every measurable way. And I would say, life is unfair, God is unfair. And there's these stories of not just men in the Bible. I'm pretty sure there's been men in the Bible, both old and new, but also stories about weary travelers who, like, were going through sort of, like Greek myths and legends and Roman ones as well. And they would look up to the gods or the heavens and they would say, "God, why do you hate me? Why do you make the storms come when I try to travel?" and all this sort of stuff. And I think from the Bible, it's like, God, why do bad men prosper when good men suffer nothing but tribulation, or something like that? I know, I'm getting it wrong, but you get the idea. And like the danger is sort of, it's like a narcissism where you sort of say, "But I'm such a good guy. Why haven't I receiving all the benefits of this world? Why haven't I rich, wealthy, of high status? Why don't all these things just come and flow naturally to me?" And well, look, part of the problem is, I will say, is that we are focusing too much on ourselves and not enough outwards at other people and what we can do to help other people. Because when you look at other people out there and they're driving a nice car, they got a nice wife, or if you're a woman, they got a nice husband, good job, all this sort of stuff, or lovely kids, or whatever it might be. And you say, "Look at them. Aren't they so lucky? Why don't I have what they have?" No matter what it is that you're envious of. And what you got to recognize, of course, is that that's totally counterproductive. You can look at other people and say, "Geez, I'm going to, create that for myself. Going to set about doing it step by step." And the danger always is to begrudge what other people have and say, "Oh, why don't I have that?" Rather than, like the American dream used to be, you look at that and you say, "That's excellent. That gives me something to strive for." And the other thing that, when I was growing up, people used to say to me all the time, and I used to kind of feel quite bitter about it, but in the sense that it would make me not really believe. But they would say to me, look, be very careful about judging people. It's a very Christian thing. Maybe that's why I kind of thought, whatever. But they said, be very careful about passing judgment on other people because you never know what they're going through in their private lives. Outside, when they're in public, they may be wearing their best clothes, painted on their best face. You know, if he's a man, he might be wearing his best suit, but all his other clothes are rags. And he's just trying to appear dignified as best he can, not for his own sake, but for the betterment of society. And you never know as well, like maybe one of their children is sick and you just don't know it, and you don't know what grief they're going through. So again, look, I know you know this, but it's just a reminder that if we are less concerned with either our own failings or our own desires for success, then you do ultimately get something that you'll value much better at the end of your life, which is that while I was here, I did help people in some small way. And I'm not doing it because I want any thanks either now or in the afterlife. It's because I don't want to have any regrets that I could have done something better and I didn't, because I was too wrapped up in my own feelings of a sort of a sense of, oh, well, this should have been this way, or that should have happened and it didn't, and so it was unfair. I used to waste so much of my own life saying that's unfair, or that can't work because there's all these hurdles and impediments in my way. That's never going to work, so there's no point in even trying. I was always the person who gave up before I even started. And it's only now that I'm saying to myself, I cannot allow myself to feel sorry for myself, hard done by, or aggrieved anymore about any aspect of my life. You take whatever you might consider to be your own personal suffering as your personal cross, you carry it, and you don't complain about it. You might stumble, you might falter, but you get up again and you keep going to your destination. And a lot of people would like to think then that they offer up whatever penance or sacrifice that they might do, no matter how small or how large, to God. And God looks down and he is pleased. And you don't need to be a Christian to understand what that means. You can take it as a reality that happened or as a metaphor. Both can be true. But the message is conveyed there. So look, I'll climb down from my pulpit now and just take another quick look at any of the comments here that I really should have read out already. I appreciate there. I'll go back to where I left off. You know the way. I can't read that out. But yeah, we all must use our discernment. Nobody has a full handle on what is true. Nobody has a complete monopoly on the truth. And so truth, as we live our lives, it's a continuous divination of the truth or refinement. Doc says, cheers, everyone. I did mention that already, but it bears repeating. He's driving and he's listening. And he says, cheers to everybody listening. That's Jack. So there's Slow Boy. Shout out to Slow Boy. Kristen is her name. And Joey there saying hello. And Modus, yes, Modus operandi, in case I didn't shout you out there. Ulick McGee there says, nicey and smashy. Yes, exactly. Paul Whitehouse and, I said his name earlier, Harry Enfield. So have a look. Like even in, like not even, but in a lot of comedy, there's a lot of truth there. Really all comedy has truth in it, or something serious in it that they're stating. Because a lot of the time it's satire, you know. And the people who are being satirized or mocked, they don't like it. And we can use humor as a great weapon against them. Old Man with the Gold Pan says, when a person likes someone or looks up to someone, they will look up to that person for advice and be more open to what that person says. Yes, exactly. And the problem then, of course, becomes is if they're ever gotten to, or if they were a bad actor from the beginning, then those people will continue to look up to the messenger and not be so cautious about applying any skeptical filter to the message. And all of the 99 previous messages might have been good, but then one of their methods is to lull you into a false sense of security with those people so that you drop your guard and then they suddenly are flying a fast ball past you. And that's their tactic, you see. They get you to drop your guard, so then your defenses are down, and all of a sudden you're still looking up to these people as false idols, and they are poisoning your mind now. And this is what happens with everyone. Everyone, at some point, I won't say everyone, right? Not all, not all, not all. But we've seen so many of the people who came into the social media fame, not any of us, you understand, just to be very clear about that. But you know, the people who have hundreds of thousands or maybe even millions, and they seem like a new shining light for truth and justice and the way of the future or whatever, and then somebody says, oh, I don't like him anymore, but other people didn't get the memo, and they still think, no, this guy is great, and it causes infighting amongst us, splits us, divides us even more. And some people remain loyal and other people don't, and they go, but this guy's always been good to us. But you don't know if they've been gotten to or if that was always their plan from the beginning. Say all the lovely things they love to hear. Oh, I agree with that. Oh, he's saying that thing that's based. Oh, he's calling out the you-know-who. Oh, he's based. But even people who do that, they can corral you and then turn you gradually, bit by bit, ever so slightly twist the narrative. And before you know it, you're heading in the opposite direction. So this is why we can never let go of our own God-given abilities to discern between truth and lies. Again, look, I said I was going to climb down from the pulpit. I'm very sorry if I'm being a bit preachy. Let me just check to see if there's any other comments that I ought to read out, and I'll try and wrap it up. EE channels, Job's old book. Okay, I think you're telling me that it's from the book of Job, what I was referring to earlier. Thank you. Anyway, sorry, just taking a drink of water there. Lily Gazoo says, reframing your brain. Yeah, I think that's what I've been speaking to, all right. Appreciate it. Thanks, Lily Gazoo, and good to see you. And I don't know if you said that you have, no, maybe you don't, but look, I did ask you one time if you could open an X account, and I think you'll like it. Because for a lot of people that like me, you might have been saying, nah, I'm not interested. I already have enough social media. I already waste my time enough online. And also you might think, I get the news that I need from elsewhere anyway. There's nothing that it can tell me or that I can learn from there that I couldn't learn from elsewhere. I'm going to tell you that I thought all those things, I was wrong. So I advise you to at least check, and everybody's mileage may vary, but see what you think. Give it a chance, give it a fair whack, and see what you think. But equally, I mean, yes, of course, it can be a time sink. I've noticed that about myself. But everybody just has to be in control of themselves and put up guards and constraints. And basically, I was going to make the analogy of a horse. If you are your own horse, right? Put your own reins and harness on yourself and be strict with yourself. Lily says, Daniel Boland channel, the satirist, is getting hit hard by YouTube. Okay. I don't think I've heard of him. But again, look, because I don't know him, I'm just going to say this. Just because somebody's getting hit hard on YouTube, they do use, it doesn't necessarily mean that everything they say is good and true. Because they do that knowing that the reverse psychology will mean that we'll think, that must mean that he's good, that he's not corrupted or whatever, But again, as I say, I've never heard of him, don't know him, so I'm not saying that. But I'll look him up. Old Man with the Gun says, I wish the tube would let us edit comments on live stream. Yeah, lol. I know. But it doesn't matter. Like, what I'm going to do is always give you the benefit of the doubt. And even people whose names I don't recognize, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. And even if you're telling me that you hate me or you're saying something that contradicts anything I'm saying. Lily says, keep preaching. All right. I think I have pretty much said enough. And look, I've been reading, right? I can't say the name of the book nor his name. It's not even really a book, more like a pamphlet. But I have said the name, I have said the word, and I put it in there. And it's because it will be there somewhere. If you heard it, it'll be there in the back of your mind. It's like a concept. And the subconscious does ruminate on these things. So I'll just read the last few comments here, and then I'll get to what I'm going to talk about. Can't talk about it here. I ask you to come over to X, and I'll do it on the weekend. Old man, sorry, Matt, I'll just say, I'm with the Lily, he says. You're on fire, brother. Well, look, thanks. Stephen says, I wonder how long it'll be before they throw the ban hammer. Well, this is it. And that's why I say, in the past, it was perhaps useless. It is of use now. Let's use it while it's of use. Because one of the things that I thought in the past was, I don't like the platform. I don't like the guy who owns it, whatever. Or he's not, basically, he's not perfect, right? And people used to always say to me, I think I'm going to mention it, but it definitely bears repeating. People used to always say to me, do not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Or if you like, put it the other way around, you know? And that's what was a big part of my problem. Like, I'd say, no, that isn't perfect, therefore I reject it out of hand. But what people said to me, look, the more mature approach is to sort of say, that achieves, like, it doesn't even have to be 50%, 10% of my ultimate ambition, my goal, my objective. So why not take that 10% and then I can build on that success? Because the way that you prevent yourself from becoming demoralized is by allowing yourself to celebrate the small successes. And that lesson, that life lesson, I'm not trying to say that, of course, you hadn't thought of that yourself, but we need reminding of these sort of fundamental principles, these maxims. A maxim is what's the word for it? It's a synonym. It's another word, another way of saying the same thing as a precept. A saying or a phrase or a catchphrase, a maxim, a precept. It's a concept that you hold in your mind as a foundational principle. That's what I'll be talking about, going back to some foundational principles. We don't have to reinvent them. They've all been written for us. And they're the kind of things that work, whether you feel that you are not only religious, but very staunchly religious and affiliated with one particular church, or whether you feel that you're just, spiritual, or whether you feel that you're completely atheist or agnostic, or that you hate God or whatever, right? Because I'm tired of seeing people fight amongst ourselves about these things, when broadly speaking, 99% of what they believe in and why we're all here is common ground. And so, like, I recognize that's what I've done all my life. I've picked fights with people and argued with people over my relatively minor differences in our worldview or outlook. And what I have to have, I've come to the pretty obvious realization is that once I'm dealing with somebody who is actually an authentic person, like they're arguing with me in good faith, then we are friends, even if it might seem that we're disagreeing. We're friends because we have a shared objective. We're trying to get to the same place, and we're doing it because we have good motivations. Now, I was speaking to somebody recently, and he said, I meet everybody from everywhere, and I don't care what they believe, and I don't care what their motivations are. And some people might be very confused, and they might say something like that because they're just still confused, and they want people to like them, and they don't want to say anything that might offend anybody. But I was speaking to this fella who was perfectly capable of knowing better. He was very educated. He had all these impressive achievements and the sort of things that say that you're a high status person in a society. And so when you meet somebody like that who comes out with such ridiculously poisonous beliefs and states them like that and expects you to accept that as, oh, okay, yeah, sorry, yeah. No, it doesn't matter what anybody believes. It doesn't matter why anybody does anything. Just people can do anything for any reason. It's all good. No, it isn't. And I think anybody with an ounce of discernment would know that. But that's one of the things that these people try to fly past you before you've even had time to examine their silly little ideas, which are rot for the mind. And it makes people confused, and it works on a lot of people. So because of my experience on X, what I want to see, what I have seen over the last month is lots of people doing what they can to help our people in their various ways. Everybody has a different personality and a different way of going about things. And obviously you see people criticizing other groups, saying they're not doing it the right way. I think, okay, I would have been like that in the past. At this stage, I think it's just not productive. And the other thing then I see is somebody coming in and they've got lots of followers, and people might go, uh-oh, because of, the type of logical fallacies where somebody goes, here's a high status individual, whatever he says must be coming from a place of authority. A lot of people have subscribed or followed him. Therefore, whatever he says must be good and worth listening to, so much so that we don't even have to examine what he's saying critically. We can just accept whatever he says without question, because he's got like, several thousand or even several million followers. And what we have to do is remember, no, maybe these people are faking it all. They've got all the money to buy whatever, you know the way. But these ideas then, they get thrown into a discussion group, whatever the term we want to use for that. Like I liken it to a smoke grenade, right? It causes distraction, confusion, infighting, and then they've achieved their objective. Now all of a sudden we're all scratching around the dark. Nobody can see what direction is true north anymore. And look, I know that's how it goes. I'm not telling you anything new, but I see it so much that what we need to do is, any of us who are getting a bit older now, try and help as best we can without getting their backs up. People who might be younger than us, they think they're clever, like I thought when I was younger, and just gently, if they accept it, take some of our suggestions. If they don't, I'm afraid I'm going to have to keep learning that I have to move on, right? You can't get somebody to go, oh yeah, thanks, I was a bit wrong there, thanks brother, right? They're not going to do that. I mean, like, just brother in whatever is our shared endeavor here. And I don't mean any deeper meaning to that other than just we're trying to get somewhere, but I'm trying not to be very specific about where we're going, other than to save humanity. So again, I've accidentally climbed into a pulpit, right? A credo or a motto, says Vingul, and those are very good words to state what you believe, in a short way, right? One of the things that this thing I want to talk about, it talks about how truth is best stated in brief, right? So I'm still going to work on that as well. Yes. Okay. So I'm just back to where I left off. Lily Gazoo says, I read rather, and share X, just haven't joined yet. Yeah. Well, what you're going to find is they're going to cut off more and more of what you can read. And unfortunately, you're not going to be able to listen to any live space stream. And I'd like you to not only listen, but I'd like you to participate. And what I know is, I'm going to say this to you, but it's not directed at you necessarily. There are a lot of people, no doubt you know this, who just don't feel that they're able to speak in public. And I want to tell you that that was me at one time. And I have found that, look, people would just say to me, look, you're going to feel nervous. You're going to feel very self-conscious. And you're going to suddenly feel that you're unable to even utter a word, right? But they didn't say that exactly to me, because if you tell somebody that, then it almost becomes like a fulfilling prophecy, self-fulfilling prophecy. People didn't exactly say that to me. They said, you're going to find it more difficult. You're going to find your heart races a bit. But they said, don't pay any heed to that. That's normal. That happens to everybody. And you probably heard, like, the people would say, oh, just imagine your audience is naked and whatever. Look, whatever works. I could never do that, right? But the more you do it, the more you put yourself into a situation where you feel anxious or nervous, and you manage to do it against what everything else in your body is telling you. Like, your body is sort of screaming, or your mind is screaming internally, no, don't do it, don't do it. You feel that you're putting yourself into danger or doing something you don't want to do. The more you do that, the more you feel that, and yet go against what your sort of instincts are telling you. If it's a good thing that you want to do and you do it, then what you've done is you've achieved at least some small victory over all the paranoid and insecure aspects of your character that are pulling you back. And I would even say they're not part of your character. They're part of the sort of preconditioning that they put into us when we were young. And so in pushing against these things that are holding us back from doing what not necessarily we feel that we want to do, but that we ought to do, but feel that we can't, the more you're going to feel good about yourself. I'm not still yet a good public speaker. And I remind people of that in case you think that I am, because some people have said that I am. I'm not telling you that so you should think that I am. But when I heard that, I thought, oh my God, if they think I'm good, right? The danger is then they think, oh, well, you obviously did, like, you studied how to do it. I didn't, right? You know that phrase about, you fake it till you make it. That's the bad way of doing things, where you're doing it like because you're just basically creating an artificial layer around you. You're creating a persona. No. What you're trying to do, I would advise, is think of it this way: you're trying to be not just the best person that you can be, but you are trying to become who you know you can be. And in all situations in life, the more that you conquer your fears, the better you're going to feel about yourself, and then the better you're going to be able to help others. From how you personally, in your struggle against all these, I'll call them demons holding you back, has given your life meaning and purpose, and less reason to feel sorry for yourself. I'll give you this little example that I have given to some people in the past, and it seems to have resonated with them. It's both works as a metaphor and something that I literally did in my life, and I've seen other people do. I'm just taking a drink of water here. So when I was younger, as in pre-teenager, I think a lot of people relate to this. You go somewhere where there's some water, a swimming pool, or um, a piece of water somewhere where there's a high dive board, and it actually doesn't look too bad. You see a lot of other holiday makers running up the ladder, and then not only jumping off the diving board, but sometimes running across the board, and then jumping and having a lot of fun out of it. And you think that looks like a lot of fun, and then you climb up the ladder, and then you go, oh, when you kind of see then everyone down below you, and all of a sudden, I was going to say 20 meters, but even 20 feet seems very high up in the air, and you think, I can't do this. Now, if you ever allow yourself to say, I can't do this, what you must say to yourself is, there's no can't. Other people have done it, therefore it's possible. So the only thing that's holding me back from doing that is me. Now, obviously, don't just run and jump without assessing. I mean, if you're diving into any water, the rule is, by the way, you should make sure that the water is deep enough so that you can dive in from whatever height you're diving into. You're not going to hit any hard surface or rock. And furthermore, if you're diving in, make sure that you dive in as cleanly, as smoothly as possible. If you're just jumping off with your feet, you keep your arms by your side. You try and create as small as possible surface area before you hit the water, because you think water is soft, but it's not if you hit it sideways. And you can not only give yourself a big rash, but you can injure yourself. Those are the only dangers. There's nothing else going to get you as long as you're not stupid about it. But for the purposes of the metaphor, if you ever climb back down that ladder, what you're doing is training yourself to get used to what failure tastes like. And you learn to grow accustomed to that taste. And the more that you climb down from whatever you think is an obstacle that you can't climb over, the more you're teaching yourself that failure is your only option. And it's a terrible feeling to slink back down that ladder and say, no, I can't do it. Other people can do it, but I can't. Well, you can. As long as you can think, and as long as you can, I mean, obviously, if you're stuck as a paraplegic, there's some things you can't do, but as long as you can move yourself around, there's very little you can't achieve. And the only thing usually from holding you back is you. And that's why their programming has worked so effectively. Before we ever even challenge them verbally, we're already cowering in our own minds. So what I encourage people to do is, okay, fine. You can't jump off the high diving board, jump off the lower one first. Get used to those small successes. And then when you get out on the diving board on the higher one, sit down in the end. Ease yourself off gently. Nothing bad's going to happen to you. And you're going to find it's those little successes are not only giving you a sense of satisfaction, you're now starting to enjoy life. You're starting to embrace life, what you can do rather than what you can't do. And you're teaching yourself that in the past, when you thought something was insurmountable, you were wrong. And it's good to recognize when you were wrong. It's actually, there's no shame in ever saying there was lots of things I was wrong about. I was wrong about all these things that I thought I couldn't do. And then I realized not only can I do them, but they seemed hard at first, but now it seems like second nature to me. And sometimes you see in people who have everything, they look the same. I mean, take twins for the metaphorical example. They look the same. You think they speak the same. They have the same voice. They have much the same character. They're even wearing the same clothes. But in one of those twins' minds, He may be a very shy individual. The other one might be very outgoing. And it could be just because of a series of negative choices that one of the twins made versus a series of positive choices. And in what I mean by positive choice is the choice to say, I'm frightened, but you have a voice in your mind that says, the fear is irrational. It's not a healthy fear. It's not a self-preservation fear. It's a fear of me saying to myself, I don't want to try in case I fail. And I don't want to look silly, or I don't want anybody to laugh at me. Well, to hell with that. We don't have time to worry about whether anybody thinks we're silly, or didn't say something the right way, or didn't do something in the right aesthetic. We do what we can, and we do it not for ourselves, but for the greater good. So again, I've accidentally climbed into a pulpit. I will try and wrap this up here. I'll take this as a comment, right? Europeans need to go back to intellectualism. Except just to say, yes, but not remain in just purely intellectualism. The struggle begins in the mind, the thought is first formed, and then that leads to a cascading series of thoughts, which ultimately leads to movement and the right action at the right time. Modus operandi says, when Muskie is arrested or delete. Well, yeah. But again, strike while the iron's hot, or use what you can when you can. Slowboy says, intellectualism or / rationalism is pointless because man is religious by nature and is much more easily motivated by mythos. So I don't disagree. And what I would just say is, I'll say this phrase: horses for courses. Whatever works, you have to tailor a message for whatever works for the individual, and you have to try and size them up. Like one of them, I won't wax lyrical, but one of the big mistakes I've made is thinking I'm speaking to a rational person and then just trying to tell them facts. And even though I see them backing up, getting more defensive, getting more aggressive, getting more hostile, I keep going, and then I got frustrated. And I've had to learn to go slower, or go more gentle, or speak to them in a way that they might understand, or actually, before I even try to tell them anything, I should be listening to what they want to tell me and leave it at that until next time we should meet. And then I might know more about them and be able to speak to them in a way that they might be more receptive to, Alan Hargreaves, the voice of reason, he says, the place will become like the jungle soon. Well, maybe things will get worse before it gets better. But we'll deal with whatever situation unfolds. I'll try and catch up now a bit here without spending too long on anything. Followers can be bought. Exactly, says Lily. Krishnan Resurrection says, Western civilization is marked down to be destroyed. Oh, yes, we've been targeted. We know that now. Stephen Crumley says, where we are going is in the history books of how to subvert their subversion. Yes, they might not know our names, but they might thank us for the sacrifices we made for future generations. We get to be part of history right now. Christian on Resurrection says, our voice is important. It is, all of our voices. It's a collective effort. In case I didn't say that, that always bears repeating. It's a cumulative effort. It's an accumulation of all our voices together that makes the choir, that doesn't need amplification. All of us singing together, figuratively speaking, or literally from the same hymn sheet, that has much more power than one voice singing in the wind, Many fail for fear of failure, exactly. But we don't have to continue to fail. Never too late to turn things around. Never too late to, I'll speak for myself now here, stop feeling sorry for myself and pick myself up and just do what I can when I can. Krishnan says, speak, or forever hold your peace. Exactly. He says, me neither. I would never have dared a few years ago. What was I scared of? Exactly. What are we scared of? Sometimes we're only scared of what people might think of us. And a lot of us have actually realized, I haven't cared about what anyone thinks of me for a long time now, because most people are just people who don't even have their own minds. So who cares? They don't use their own minds. Useful advice, says Lily. Yes. Well, I'm not sure exactly what was in reference to. It shows that I should keep up with the comments as they go. Alan Hargreaves says, Europeans should preserve the heritage of arts, literature, and intellectualism. Without it, we are finished. Yes, we need to preserve the best of what our forefathers and our ancestors have created for us. When I say forefathers, I mean everyone, mothers and fathers who came before us. Alan Harker says they are dividing Europe against us, just like in VV2, I'll say, right? Right, I think I have caught up with the comments now, so I'll wrap it up. Moda says, lead, follow, or get the hell out of my way. Exactly. They say that in business meetings as well, but they always take all these words that actually have a punch in them. And then you find all these idiots repeating them. And that's why I kind of started rejecting these things. But no. It's just, I'll say this, right? Out of the mouths of fools often falls the truth as well. I know I'm paraphrasing something from the Bible as well. The latest thing is to blame France for the migrant crisis. Oh yeah, sure, we're all to blame. That's how you do it. You blame the victim for what happened to them. That's all to do with like Stockholm syndrome or victim blaming or that kind of thing. But look, we all must bear a certain responsibility for allowing collectively, right, for what we've allowed to happen to our nations and our civilization, you know. But what is that phrase? Something along the lines of, you only... something along is it it's not you only accept what you tolerate or something like that, but anyway, I think, you know, somebody can put it in if they can remember. Lily here says, just written now this moment, she says, reading about the Great War, resistance had effects. The French troops who said they would defend the line but not advance into the meat grinder. The French executed their own soldiers. High risk. Yeah, look, it's absolutely... Well, look, I won't get bogged down in that, but anyway, there's a lot of different angles to look on all that from. Albert says, sorry, Alan Hargreaves, and his moniker or his subtitle for himself is, and I like it, it makes me smile or laugh every time. So I'll read it out from the start. Alan Hargreaves, the voice of reason. So he says, it's the Albert Pike scenario coming about now. Yeah. Well, by the way, I am going to wrap these things up now. Sorry, this stream up now, because you know, we're getting into territory that I'd much rather discuss over on X. So this is my invitation to you. I might come and ask you again before the weekend via a community post or something like that. I might do another video if I've got time. But I would ask you to please share, and you know, once I have the link, I'll share it here. And if you can share it or just let other people know, go over to X. I'm the same username over on X, but my handle is 2 capital E's, but it's E extrapolations. That's it, at E extrapolations, because you have to have it a little bit shorter. I wish I'd thought of a shorter username when I started. But I'm Eternal Extrapolations over on X, and my handle is at E extern. Sorry, oh God. I'm at E extrapolations. So this and other things and whatever comes up, and the nice thing about it is that if you're afraid of speaking in public, the nice thing is, sorry, I don't mean afraid, but a little nervous about it, don't be, because everybody, the culture that has developed there is one where everybody gets to hold the microphone and everybody gets listened to. And everybody gets to say their piece without being interrupted. And then if anybody should choose to disagree, they will get their turn to speak. And they must disagree in a respectful manner, whereby they're not just going, oh, you're a this or you're a that kind of, you know, name that they want to call you. No, they refer to what you said and they say, I might disagree with that aspect of it. Here's why, that sort of stuff. Right? Not all are like that, right? But generally a culture has evolved like that. And it's very conducive to having conversations, because I don't know everything and I've learned a great number of things. And I think as well, as important as all that, is that what I have learned by speaking to these people is that there are a great number of us. I would say we have reached a critical mass of people who know what's up. We know why what's up is up. And we can also listen to those very same people. They come into our spaces and we can go into theirs and we can hear what they say. It's almost immeasurable how useful it is to be able to hear them, you realize, oh my God, these people aren't all powerful. And most of them don't know what's going on either. I mean, they have some ideas, right? But like you can see that they are basically a lot of these guys who think they're real clever. Like you can see how where their chutzpah is going to lead them. Like they're going to be masters of their own undoing as well. But I've taken great heart from hearing how many people from like, let's say they could be young adults, like in their early 20s, and there are boomers there as well. I don't know when they got wise to things, but some of them have said, I am sorry for my generation as well. But let's not be blaming each other anymore. Let's all get it together. Let's all see what we can do to help. And you hear all these voices from around the world, whether it be anywhere, like in any of what used to be the Western world, North America, anywhere in Europe, anywhere in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and other places too, wherever people are, and people are talking, and we are giving each other what is needed is a kind of moral support to realize we are not alone, and we can do this, and things ultimately are going to be restored to some right and good and just order, but it's going to take our collective effort. So I've taken great heart from that. So I invite you to come over to that. Make an account before the weekend if you don't have one already. If you have an account, look me up and follow me. If you like, you can have a look at my profile and you can leave a message there. Because I'm not sort of verified or whatever, I can't just direct message anybody. But it seems that if somebody direct messages me, then I can reply to them, but that's about it. So I don't care if it's a direct message or if it's a post that you want to do on my profile. You'll see me there. You can respond to anything I've posted, and I'll respond to you if you can't direct message me. And then I'll create a space, and you should hopefully get a notification, a live space where we can talk. It's just audio, and you can listen. You can join. We'll see your avatar there. You can choose whatever profile picture. It doesn't have to be you. In fact, I would discourage you from using your face unless you really wanted to be out there. Choose a name and choose a profile picture. And then you can join, you can listen, and I encourage you to participate. And if you want to participate at any point, you click the microphone button. The whole thing is a bit buggy. It's a bit more buggy on a computer, but it works, I'm told, better on a phone. And you click the button to talk, and then the request is sent. And then if I see it, or if there's what they call a co-host or somebody else there, if they see it, and by the way, a co-host will be somebody that I know and trust, then they will approve your request. And then what you do is in the sort of culture of X, there's an icon there, like many smileys or emojis. One of the emojis is a hand up. Some people call it hands, some people call it salutes, whatever, You put the hand up, and then hopefully, like, I'll see it or a co-host, and then we say, yes, yeah, you say something now, and then you come to speak, and do not be nervous, not be worried, because you're among friends, and even if enemies are listening, whatever, we'll speak the truth and we'll speak it proudly. And my particular personal attitude is, I will say anything to you now as I will say to anybody in public who's in front of me, standing in front of me. And ultimately, if anybody thinks that what I'm saying is somehow hateful or somehow awful in some way, well, I'm not going to accept that they can tell me what I can and can't say. And also, like, if they want to try and think that there's some reason why I must be brought into a court or whatever and justify myself, well, first of all, I don't accept their authority over me. And secondly, I'll be very interested to know why they feel that I can't, or anything. I'd ask them point then to whatever I've said, because I am perfectly willing to say whatever I'm saying now to anyone. And I mean that anyone, anywhere. And it's not because I'm brave, it's because the alternative is to cower and slink away and live a meaningless life for whatever little or large amount might remain of it. And I can't do that. So I have no choice now but to do what I can. And a big part of what I might be able to do is to speak unapologetically to as many people as I can, if I feel that what I'm saying is worthwhile. So that's about it for now. I'll just see if there's any last comments that I should read out. Oh, well, I did click this already. Matt says, great show, John. Many blessings to all here, and cheers. Cheers to you, Matt. It's very good to see you always coming into my streams, and you do give me support by just being there, and I appreciate it. Krishnan Resurrection says, yes, there's a lot of subterfuge in their media. Cheers all. Lily says, I also pan for gold. She pans for gold in wonderful literature, and her videos have a quality and that is a sort of there's some gold in it. I'll just say that. Like, yeah. Oh, sorry for putting that up. Right. No, it's just talking amongst yourself. So I'll wrap it up there. And thanks to everybody who's listened or might listen in the future. I appreciate that you took the time, and I hope we'll speak in the not too distant future. This weekend, in other words. Bye for now.